of the unstructured variety. That's harmful. That's causing damage to cadets in terms of stress fractures because of an over enthusiasm for the squadron to do well. If we can cut out the non-structured
let's hear a quick comment from General Mehta before we go into a break.
Illustrate this. We just had a cross-country run at the NDA. Out of the 2,080 cadets at the NDA, 1,834 took part. There were 100 people on sick leave. 50 people who fell out at the end of the cross country, 30 who couldn't complete, 20 more who were sick. The end result is that approximately 215 cadets could not complete this cross country, which for the first time in many years is now being done in the first term instead of starting in the third term. So his point of physicality overtaking academic development is absolutely clear. Second issue, the JNU is responsible for conducting the academic content, right? 50% of the instructors are deficient. They've been deficient for the last 15 years. We've had an ad hoc principle of the training.
Absolutely, very valid. I think we need to look at all these issues. Here we'll take a short break. On return, we'll continue our discussion on the need or otherwise to revise the training modules for defense services. Welcome back. We're discussing whether our defense services are ready for modern day warfare. General Mehta, in one of your articles, you had suggested the need for a national military commission. What would be the role of such a commission?
I had made this suggestion in awareness of the fact, and General Sir would agree with me, that what has been happening on the ground is that each commandant brings in his own baggage, his own likes, his own dislikes. With the result that the training at the National Defence Academy and similar academies actually undergo the sea change with each commandant's entry and exit. There is no ombudsman. The headquarter IDS is only notionally in control of what's happening. It's not as if the commandants are not handpicked and they are not the best of the best. They indeed are. But they carry their biases with them, which have been part of their growing up. A national commission would ensure that it would have an ombudsman system, which would ensure therefore that the Kotos committee and all other recommendations made for prime academies, which were once world class, should be re-established. It cannot be left to subjective understanding of how a particular academy should run on the basis of understanding of a person where he comes from. For instance, the commandants are by rotation, Army, Navy, Air Force. You can understand the sea change in outlook if each commandant brings in his own interpretation of what ought to be done or what not ought to be done. A central system would ensure standardness of training, which would take NDA back to the world-class institution it was, modeled after West Point and perhaps better than West Point.
So if somebody has a point of view, all that should be put across to the National Military Commission.
Absolutely. The problem gets compounded by the fact that very often our tenures are very limited. A commandant coming for 8-10 months cannot contribute.
And that's a problem of all three defense services at the moment. General Kochhar, you talked about the modern day, the security environment and the need for drivers of change. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, my first point, taking off from where the General said, the services need to be integrated institutionally, organizationally, intellectually, and technically. And we've been talking about a national defense university for a very, very long time.
Why do you think that hasn't taken off?
I think it's only basically for political reasons, and therefore CDS also. Now, if you had that sort of an organization available, as the General was mentioning, then you will have a standardization, whether A, B or C, whichever commandant comes in turn, he has a particular mandate and he follows that mandate. And therefore, this is one of the very important aspects that we have to think about. And while we are talking about bringing changes in our training modules, we have to take into consideration that future conflicts are going to be at very short notice deployments. Skills for joint operations are the order of the day, whether within the country or adjoining. Such universities that I am talking about, or national defense universities, you will have to have it even at regional areas, because problems of Northeast are quite different to the problems in the deserts, to problems of what are going to be along.
But General Kochhar, a lot of these issues perhaps need to be addressed in your own higher training institutes like the War College, no?
No, true. You have the RTREC only dealing with the army or partly with the, but here you have a university which will have various faculties dealing with tri-service organizations and tri-service matters.
Okay.
So it will standardize the entire thing. Joint training is very, very important. Then we have also to think about technological changes. We are getting weapon platforms which require definitely more technology, and I appreciate that specialization and continuity. You will have more graduates and specialists coming into the sailors.
Would you want a higher level of education even for the normal Jawan?
I am talking about it, that you will have a large number of graduates coming as soldiers, sailors and airmen. In the Air Force they are already there.
That's right.
In the signals they are already there.
So would you educate that even for the army?
Obviously, in the signal regiments and all, and these
Graduates.
technical and in electrical and mechanical engineering, all these people are already there.
Yes, Brigadier Sharma, you want to add to that?
We are today talking of FINSAS 2020, where the infantry soldier is going to be more of a gadget than a human being. Human resources have to evolve and have to change and rise up to the expectations of the kind of technology that they are expected to use. He has a visor with a map displayed on that. He can do a range finding thing. He's got a computerized system all over his body. You expect a 6th class or a 9th class pass individual to handle all that technology. I'm afraid you're going to fall flat.
General Mehta, would you agree with Brigadier Sharma? But don't you think that, a lot of our security environment requires patrolling on the borders, and for that you need physically robust people?
Which is the reason why I would partly agree with him.
Okay.
I would say that putting too many gadgets on a soldier is really going the American way, where after World War II, whichever battle they entered has been technology led, and invariably they actually won the battle but lost the war.
Okay.
In India, I think we are very strong on human values, and leadership is something which goes well beyond technology. So while adequate technology is necessary, the human interface must be kept alive, and that is why institutions like NDA, IMA and OTA should be empowered to develop that human interface wonderfully.
General Gariwal, in our environment, given the economy that we have, isn't technology a hindrance really? I mean, I don't think we have the wherewithal of the kind of things we are talking about.
You see, I think technology is here to stay. We have the capability to absorb technology. I don't think we have an interface today to be able to absorb all that technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
What the impression I gather is that we sometimes pick up these high technological terms from glossy magazines and use them without having the ability to actually assimilate and use it. I feel that only that much technology should be brought in as our soldiers are able to use effectively. And that technology should be, as they say, idiot proof. It has to be made for our environment, for our conditions, and something simply borrowed from elsewhere or lifted from a glossy magazine will not
Right.
work.
Brigadier Sharma, in counterinsurgency operations, where do you think the Indian soldier is really lacking?
No, I'm going to again twist this answer of mine the other way around. I think today our army is probably the most battle hardened and seasoned and exposed army in the world, and all world armies are coming to us for training. Our soldiers are good. Their ability to withstand physical stress, do the patrolling and all that, like General Mehta was saying, is fantastic. I've participated in an Indo-US joint exercise in CIJW. The US guy got killed by just flies and mosquitoes, and our fellow was drinking water from a stream, and this guy was looking around for a bottled water somewhere. We are hardened. And then they ask us, how do you survive in J&K?
Okay.
Well, we survive because we know how to integrate with our people, we know how to treat them well, and they also respect us for that. There is an odd aberration everywhere, but by and large we survive because our human nature and our approach is such that we can survive and succeed. As on date, the levels have gone down in
But General Mehta, do you need to really look at armies like the United States Army? Because their requirements are different. They operate outside their own borders, while we deal with our own people.
That's it.
I think the American Army has a very strong focus on critical thinking, Mr. Sandhu. This is well away from our mnemonic background and our mnemonic past. We are actually linear in our thinking, and I think we should gladly accept that. So absorbing that portion of development in a foreign army, for example, critical thinking from America, and for example, steadfastness and integration from the British, are things that we've been doing well and pretty well. And I think we should continue doing that. Because our success in Kashmir today, this policy of befriending the people, is actually borrowed from the British and their Malayan experience, and it has done pretty well for us.
General Kochhar, yes.
I agree with him. We have to have a best of both. And we have to train or go for training changes which are suitable in our environment. And look at the environment that we are working in. I have, for example, commanded the Nathula Brigade, high altitude. Suddenly you go to the deserts. Suddenly you go to the northeast. Suddenly you go to a riverine terrain. Therefore, for us, as far as training ground is concerned, is already available. All that we need to do is to upgrade our technology. And that too not in haste. It has to be done right from the NDA onwards.
That's right.
And you have, for example, now let me give you an example. You have most of our battalions which are well forward. We could have e-learning for them, internet available to them, so that in their spare time, whatever they do.
But all that is gradually happening.
And it is happening. And therefore, imagine today a youngster is using the telephone all over. He is taking photographs with it, he is doing all sorts of things, and given another 2 to 3 years, everybody will be having a laptop, and so on and so forth. But we must be prepared mentally.
But what are the kind of changes we require for training in the higher military training institutes?
Let's say, for example, Staff College. The joint portion or the joint operations portion of the Staff College must be increased. As Garewal has already said, that in NDA that component is definitely has been increased, where you have common to all service subjects. That is one place that I can think of. The other is a lot of cross attachments must take place. Higher command courses, you have couple of Air Force officers coming and vice versa. This could be increased.
Mr. Sharma, at the cutting edge level, let's say a regiment or a brigade headquarters, how does this jointmanship work?
No, personally I feel it's absolutely super. It depends on your approach. I've had a wonderful association with the squadron and the flights in the northeast. I had the pilots stay with my brigade for about 3 weeks. We had fighter and the ground attack pilots.
But why do you think it doesn't happen at the higher levels?
I think it's more of a turf war. You don't want to sort of open up that well, and you want to preserve something like the Air Force doesn't want to give helicopters and other flying machines.
So, General Garewal, is that the way to go?
I think we have the finest institutions for joint training in our country. Our NDA model is something which was unthought of in the world. It was something exemplary.
But we need to take the NDA model higher.
We need to take it higher. At the cutting edge level, jointmanship is excellent.
Right, last word from you.
I think you're absolutely right so far as cutting edge is concerned, and I must share this little experience. A week back I took a talk at the Higher Command course to the JOCAP, that is the joint capsule of the Army, Navy and Air Force Higher Command colleges. And when I told them that we've been victors for 5,000 years because victory is in the mind, and the Gita talks of nothing but victory in the mind. All we need to do is to externalize victory and do it there. There was unanimous approval of the Army, Navy, Air Force people at the cutting edge. At the senior edge, I think we need to grow up a little bit.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us in the discussion. Though our defense services have withstood the test of time, modern day warfare requires that we lay greater emphasis on preparing our soldiers for challenges of tomorrow. Perhaps scholar warriors is the way to go. That's all in Defense Line today. Do send your feedback. Good luck and goodbye.